So welcome back to the Bitcoin ecosystem, where we're breaking down Bitcoin from first principles to really understand how it works. And I've said this before, and I'm going to keep saying it. And you're going to keep seeing this chart at the start of every single episode, because this chart is the reason why I started this podcast. All these years later, Bitcoin adoption is still stuck at 3%, just 3%. So for something this revolutionary, I think that's shockingly low, but I think it's also in line with every other cycle. And so that's why we're here. We're going to help change that by understanding how Bitcoin actually works. And over time, we're going to see adoption continue to increase over time. So now let's talk about something absolutely fundamental to understanding Bitcoin, and that's its properties. So one of the most remarkable things about Bitcoin is this. It's unlike traditional money, it has a fixed and predictable supply. And at first glance, you might think, well, Bitcoin is digital, and aren't all things digital unlimited, right? Like you can just continue to copy and paste a file forever. But Bitcoin isn't like that. According to the rules set at the very beginning by Satoshi Nakamoto, there's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoins in circulation, not one more. That's it. So this is a hard cap that's built into the very protocol itself. And it's one of the reasons people call it digital gold, because it's scarce by design. So then the question is, and this chart kind of does a good illustration of this, but how do new Bitcoins come into existence? Every 10 minutes, a new block of transactions is added to the Bitcoin blockchain. This block validation process is called mining, and it serves two critical purposes. Number one, it validates transactions, making sure everyone agrees on the state of the ledger. And number two, it introduces new Bitcoins into circulation, but only as a reward for the miners who secure the network. Now, I know I've gone into a lot of details just in those few statements alone, and we're going to unpack that in future episodes. Every time a miner successfully solves the cryptographic puzzle needed to add a new block, they receive what's called a block reward, newly minted Bitcoin. So you might hear about this in the news, and we're going to dive a little bit deeper into what that means. But here's the rhythm of the Bitcoin's heartbeat. One new block is added every 10 minutes. That equates to 144 blocks per day, or 2,016 blocks every 2 weeks, or 52,560 blocks every single year. And each block is stacked on top of the previous one, forming what we call the blockchain height, with the very first block being the Genesis block mined in 2009. So this chart perfectly illustrates one of Bitcoin's most defining features, and that's its fixed supply and predictable issuance cycle. So on the left axis, you see the total Bitcoins in circulation, and it's represented by the blue line. And notice how it rises sharply in the early years and then gradually flattens over time. And that's because most Bitcoins were mined in the first decade. And as we move closer to the year 2140, the supply curve asymptotically approaches the hard cap of 21 million Bitcoins. And once we hit that number, no new Bitcoins will ever be created. And on the right axis, the green line shows the block reward. And the block reward is the amount that Bitcoin miners receive for adding a new block to the Bitcoin blockchain. And what you can see is that this curve, you see it basically, it has a step-like function, and it drops every few years. And those drops are the famous Bitcoin halvings. They happen roughly every 4 years, where the block reward is cut in half. So we started at 50 BTC or Bitcoin per block in 2009, then 25, then 12.5, and now the Bitcoin reward is just 3.125 Bitcoin per block. And it will keep halving every 4 years until eventually the block reward effectively hits zero. So this combination, the fixed $21 million cap and the halving schedule, is Bitcoin's built-in monetary policy. Unlike fiat currencies, where governments can print endlessly, Bitcoin supply is fully transparent and it's mathematically locked in. So what you're looking at here isn't just a chart, it's a visual representation of why Bitcoin is considered sound money. So how many Bitcoin are there right now? So this gives us a real-time snapshot. Maybe a week ago I took this snapshot, but you can see here how many Bitcoin are currently existing today. So as of today, and again, this is as of maybe last week, there are about 19.897 million Bitcoin already in existence, which means that over 94.7% of all Bitcoins that will ever exist have already been mined. This leaves something around 1.1 million Bitcoins left to be mined, and that's forever. And here's the fascinating part. The rate of new Bitcoin creation is slowing down every 4 years because of the halving cycle we talked about earlier. Right now, only about 450 new Bitcoins enter circulation per day, and this number will keep dropping with each halving cycle. So this slide perfectly highlights why Bitcoin is considered scarce, not just compared to fiat currencies, which can be printed infinitely, but even compared to gold. We know the exact supply, we know how fast new coins are being issued, and we know exactly when it will all end. And by the time we reach the year 2140, the very last fraction of Bitcoin, the very last Satoshi will be mined, and the total supply will be locked forever at 21 million BTC, or 21 million Bitcoin. So let's quickly recap some of the fixed parameters of the Bitcoin blockchain. So these are the rules that make it predictable, transparent, and of course, radically different than any fiat currency. The block creation rate. A new block is added to the blockchain every 10 minutes, like clockwork. The initial block reward. So back in 2009, miners earned 50 BTC, 50 Bitcoin per block. And that's how new coins first enter circulation. The block reward halving. This happens every 4 years. That reward is cut in half, slowing down the rate of new Bitcoin creation over time. The number of Satoshis per Bitcoin. Each Bitcoin is divisible into 100 million Satoshis, making it usable for even the smallest transactions. And the total supply. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins in existence, hard-coded into the protocol. So this simple formula perfectly captures Bitcoin's predictable monetary policy. The rate at which new Bitcoins are created per block is given by 50 divided by 2 to the power of I, where I represents the number of 4-year halving cycles since Bitcoin's launch in 2009. At I equals 0, that was the period of time from 2009 to 2012, the block reward was 50 BTC. At I equals 1, and this is 2013 to 2016, it dropped to 25 BTC. At I equals 2, which is 2017 to 2020, it became 12.5 BTC. And today, after multiple halvings, we are now at just 3.15 BTC per block. So every 4 years, this reward continues to halve, reducing the rate of new Bitcoins entering circulation. And by design, the schedule will continue again until the year 2140, when the last fraction of a Bitcoin will be mined. And so this is the mathematical precision that makes Bitcoin unique. You've also probably heard people say things like, one day even holding a single Satoshi could make you rich. Or the phrase stacking sats, or stacking Satoshis. And maybe you're wondering, what exactly is a Satoshi? We all understand what one Bitcoin is because we can see its price directly in fiat terms, like how much one BTC is worth in US dollars. But Bitcoin, of course, is highly divisible, like I talked about. We rarely talk about those smaller units. A Satoshi, it's often called a sat, it's the smallest unit of Bitcoin, kind of like how a penny is the smallest unit of a dollar. But Bitcoin takes this to an extreme level of precision. So one Bitcoin is 100 million Satoshis. That means You don't have to own a whole Bitcoin to participate in this ecosystem. You can own fractions, just like you can own cents or pennies in fiat. And that's why people talk about stacking sats as potentially life-changing. So yes, that single sat that you own today could matter a lot in the future. One of the most common questions people ask is why 21 million? Why did Satoshi Nakamoto choose to limit Bitcoin supply to exactly 21 million coins? And the truth is, we don't know Satoshi's exact reasoning, but mathematically, it makes perfect sense. Here's how it works. Bitcoin operates again on this 4-year halving cycle, where the block reward, the new Bitcoin given to miners, is cut in half every 4 years. So when you start to add those block rewards over time, you actually get a simple geometric series. So 50 plus 25 plus 12.5 plus 6.25 plus 3.125, etc., etc. And when you sum that infinite series, it converges to 100 BTC over the entire life of the network. And since we know exactly how many blocks are mined in each 4-year halving period, 210,000 blocks, sorry, that took a bit out of me to say, the total supply works out to 210,000 times 100 BTC equals 21 million BTC. So mathematically, that's where the 21 million cap comes from. That's how it's derived. But why 21 million specifically? There's also a philosophical angle. Bitcoin was designed to mimic the scarcity of something like gold. Gold mining follows a similar pattern. Lots of production early on, then slowly tapering off as resources become harder to find. In fact, if you melted all the gold ever mined into a single cube, it would measure about 21 meters on each side. And some people speculate that Satoshi intentionally mirrored this scarcity when choosing 21 million Bitcoin. So whether that's true or not, the result is really the same. Bitcoin is scarce by design. So while we mathematically know where 21 million comes from, what it really represents is something far bigger. A monetary system where absolute scarcity, something that fiat currencies can never replicate, is baked into the system. So in our next episode, we're going to continue to deep dive under the hood. Stay tuned. And if you learned something new today, I would truly appreciate if you like, subscribe, and support my channel. I am looking forward to grow with you together. And if you have any questions about Bitcoin at all, just let me know. Chances are many people also have the same question, and it could probably be the context for a great future episode. So with that, let's get after it.